how Hunger Games is impacting the NBA playoffs. I guess the regular season matters. The best in the world again. Can we go the other way every now and then? And some big NBA rumors beginning to fly. It's all coming up on Tip Off. Boom, 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 boom. The next 48 hours of hoops is going to be sick. Boom, 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 boom. Best player on the floor wins. Boom, 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 boom. Or best bench players who make plays on the road win. Boom, 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 boom. Hi there. Next 48 hours is going to be sick. Tied at two. Two San Antonio, two Miami, two best. Those teams still probably win these series, but it is going to be amazing. Who said the regular season doesn't matter? 8-0 in the conference finals for home teams. Maybe home court advantage is a pretty big deal, and the regular season does matter. I had a nice time last night on KSL television, Sports Beat with Tom Kirkland. Hope you got to hear it. I want to clarify something I said on that, then we'll get into other stuff. So Favors and Hayward are playing on the U.S. select team, which will go up against and a practice against the Olympic team. And when this happened 4 years ago, Kevin Durant came out of as the story of the camp, that basically he should have been on the team, he was good enough, all those things. I think the same is going to happen with Faves. I think Faves is going to be the story of the camp. And I actually think he'll turn out to probably be as good as any big there. When you look at the bigs on the Olympic roster right now, there are five. LaMarcus Aldridge, who had his hip and then ended up with a blood injury and is recovering. I really question what level he'll be at. Tyson Chandler had some injuries as the season ended. Chris Bosh is likely to play Game 5, and I guess we will see where he sits in this whole thing. But obviously his body is not all the way right. Dwight Howard is coming off of back surgery, and Kevin Love. Now, what I don't know is when four of those guys suddenly can't go, Favors turns out to be the best big in camp, whether or not Favors goes. You could always invite Duncan. You could always see if Bynum might change his mind. You might decide Roy Hibbert. But I also wonder a little bit with the injuries that they have, whether or not something crazy happens, Favors dominates. You're not sending DeMarcus Cousins to London to represent America yet. I don't think you can trust him to do that. So just keep an eye on it when they go. Favors and Hayward, as was reported this week, will not participate in Jazz Summer League. They'll do the Vegas thing instead as the dates overlap. Should be interesting to keep an eye on, follow, see what's going on. Should be a lot of fun. And hopefully, hopefully everyone, those guys play great and grow from the experience. Growth from within is really boring, but I think it's probably the reality for the Jazz. That the way this team is going to make huge strides is two big steps by Hayward and Favors and two big steps by Burks and Cantor. And unless something really materializes out on the open market, I'm not sure what if there's any other major pieces that get added to this roster. The biggest major piece, I think, is going to be Favors playing. And playing 30 minutes a night and altering who we are as a defensive team. That's, I brought this up with Tom. As much as we are constantly talking about the lack of outside shooting, which is true, the offense as a whole was still fine. We were the 8th or 9th best offensive team in the NBA last year. So here's my crazy, stupid analogy on Hunger Games. Can't believe this came to my mind. I read Hunger Games because I guess this summer, my then going into 4th grade son read it. Yeah, appropriate, huh? Don't worry, I'm still enough of a conservative freak parent that they're not allowed to see the game. I mean, let's make sure you understand who we are. We don't let our kids watch commercials, okay? I have no idea if I'm doing anything right. I just know that I'm a little freak about it. So he's reading Hunger Games. I read it with him. The whole key opening scene of the Hunger Games. Katniss has the choice of whether or not to run in and try to grab one of the backpacks or whether to stay back and play coy and outweight this thing. LeBron was seen the other day as reading Mockingjay, which I think, or Catching Fire, I can't remember, which is the next books in Hunger Games, which leads me to believe he's read Hunger Games. And he is being much too much like Katniss, who very systematically kind of survived and allowed everyone else to knock each other off, and because she didn't have the firepower that everybody else has. LeBron has all of the firepower. Kevin Garnett is probably Katniss, who doesn't have all the firepower left and is trying to find a way to sneak things and pull tricks and do all these other things. But LeBron has all of the power and all of the strength. And when LeBron is pulling up on jumpers or making the right play, he's being much too much like Katniss's opening approach at the stadium to the opening part of the Hunger Games. There's my Hunger Games thought. You can now all mock me. I will say this on LeBron. I had a very strange reaction. I found myself rooting for him to make the game-winning shot at the end of regulation. I'd like the Celtics to win this series because of my friendship, whatever, following, covering, whatever, of Ray Allen. Though I know Eric Spoelstra a little bit and like him too, so I mean that's whatever. So anyway, I found myself when LeBron had the ball in the final 15 seconds of the fourth quarter, rooting for him to make the shot. The late game criticism of him at one level is real. You can't make up what's happening, but it's so out of control and so absurd and so pointed at one guy that I suddenly wanted him to make the shot and end it. He hit the big three a few minutes earlier. I was seriously hoping he would make that as much as I want the Celtics to win that game, and I'm glad they did because particularly we have just going to have a sick Game 5. But LeBron is averaging 32 points, 9 rebounds a game, and shooting 52%. And he doesn't play the final few minutes. Back off a little bit on this. He often makes the correct play. Haslam didn't flare out to where he's supposed to on that pass, is what happened on that one. And yes, he could be more aggressive. He's too coy like Katniss. And he needs to probably be more aggressive in some fashions. And I do believe that the free throw shooting issues he has are causing him to maybe be a little less reluctant. But let's also remember Jordan had not won this was Jordan's first year to win a title at the same age. He's not behind in any way. He puts up 28 points, 6.5 rebounds, 6.5 assists. Jordan did it once in his entire career. This guy's incredible. And the constant criticism while others are getting a pass, to me, is out of control. In my opinion, on the floor, he has answered every single question you could have about his career. Yes, he needs to win a title pretty soon, but he really may win a title this year. And then it's on. Then when they add Jason Terra in the offseason and some other pieces, they just continue to get better. On that same note of just kind of thoughts, the referees are being put in the spotlight in this series to some extent because anytime it's such a big deal, and anytime there's a missed call, we highlight it. But, one thing we never talk about, and I don't expect us, is when refs make good calls. If you watch that Heat-Miami game, Heat-Celtic game, one of the calls late in the game was Garnett grabbed LeBron's arm and held his hand so he couldn't go to get to Rondo. And Tom Kennedy got the call. It's one of the better officiating calls I've seen in a big game. There won't be a mention of that, except for I'll probably tweet it here in a few minutes. anywhere on the internet. Bill Kennedy, excuse me, is the one who made that call. Um, Sometimes I think, they make good calls too. Some of those, I also would say, when we run it through on slow mo and aren't sure and have to run it 2 more times on slow mo, at some point we have to stop criticizing because it's just there's too many plays going on there. San Antonio, Oklahoma City is interesting. Both these series are interesting for what's jumped out at me is in the NBA regular season, we're used to 10-2, 12-2 runs. What we're getting right now are quarter-long, half-long runs. These teams are so good that when they're rolling, they're not being able to be stopped. And if you give them the slightest window, they're grabbing it for extended periods of time. That's very different. Boy, I hope our Jazz players are watching this. These battles are fabulous, and these teams are playing insanely hard. And it would be terrific if these guys would really have watched this to understand the next level. I mean, they got waxed by the Spurs, as a few other people did, but now you're seeing what it takes. I mean, Oklahoma City has really punched first, got into physical hand-to-hand combat with San Antonio, broken their movement, matched their intensity, played with a fearlessness. And what makes that series worth keeping an eye on and why Oklahoma City could win this is that as we hit games 5, 6, and 7, there are no plays left. Everyone knows where everybody is. San Antonio's having a hard time getting into their early pick and roll with Parker coming off the Duncan pick with 18-19 in the shot clock. And that's the core piece of their offense. And now, when you can't get into that, what's going to happen is you're getting into much more one-on-one play. And that's to Oklahoma City's advantage because they have the 3 best one-on-one players, maybe other than Manu, 3 of the 4 best one-on-one players in the series. When Harden, Westbrook, and Durant there's no play to stop them. They're just going one-on-one isolation. When you're running plays at this point of an NBA series, everyone knows what they are. To the point of, some of this, Miami didn't run a play. It's really stupid. There aren't a lot of plays to be run right now where players don't know what's coming, haven't seen it already in the span of 4 or 5 games, and in which you better make sure that when you do run that play, if it blows up, that the right guys have the balls in their hand to make sure that they are the ones making the plays. Quick NBA rumor. The Nets are being mentioned about Ilyasova. This is all maybe leaked by agents at this point, but maybe the real key there is the $8 to $9 million number that is being floated around about Ilyasova, who I love and would love the Jazz to sign, but the Jazz aren't going to be able to find a way to come up with $8 or $9 million. The question would be, what number would the Jazz be willing to go to for Ilyasova, who really might just be another third. As much as I like him, he may be a third big rather than on a really good team, rather than a starting power forward, which, he was a pretty good. I like him a lot. He was a good starting power forward last year on a not very good team. And he does different things and stretches the floor and can rebound for that player and do some things of that sort. And I don't know. Maybe the Jazz can pull off some sort of sign and trade. And, but who would you be willing to move to do that? And how much are you really willing to pay Ilyasova? You have to certainly project out what you think he's going to be as a player. And I would say if you watch the playoffs, his type of player gets more and more valuable. I mean, Brandon Bass is on the floor for playing the 4. Battier's playing some 4. Durant's playing some 4. Matt Bonner's playing 4. The stretch 4, the smaller 4 in the playoffs becomes pretty darn important. And as the games get into stretched without plays and the things I was just talking about. Final one, thought on Tiger. I've been on the side of I did not expect him to really come back to be. I just thought he was delusional in the way he talked about himself, and I always think that's the first thing that has to happen is someone has to understand who he is prior to being able to make the come back. He is now showing some signs. We saw Rory Sabatini flinch for the first time with Tiger coming after him. It's been a long time since someone's done that. The other note I would say on Tiger is, only Hunter Mayhem and Jason Duffner, and thanks for the guys, Mike Grant at KSL, who looked this up for me, have won 2 tournaments this year. So at the end of this year, Tiger, with a major without, will probably win 4 tournaments, play fewer than anyone else, have the highest winning percentage of anyone, and maybe golfer of the year. And so Tiger may turn out to be the best golfer in the world again. He just won't be Tiger, best golfer in the world. And I think that day is probably over. But he may turn out to still be the best golfer in the world as we regress back to much more of a normal golf world. That is tip-off. Kendall Marshall video will be produced today. Damian Lillard, I've promised, will be out by Wednesday. See you.